Whether you're a long-time anime lover or a beginner, you've probably heard of One Piece, an anime and manga by creator Eiichiro Oda that has broadcasted over 1,000 times and hasn't stopped. Even with so much material in the books, it feels like there are still a lot of stories to be told. Our hero, Luffy, is at the core of this narrative. He is a young man who traverses the world aboard his ship, the thousandth. As he is getting closer to accomplishing his dream of becoming the Pirate King. Luffy was named one of the 4 emperors after conquering the Great Kaido. To defeat such a formidable foe, the Straw Hat merged his hockey talents with the abilities bestowed by his Devil Fruit, achieving an entirely new level of strength with the Gear 5 form. Luffy, an extremely creative combatant, has always evolved his Devil Fruit skills unexpectedly and innovatively. That's why today's video details all of the transformations shown by Luffy throughout the One Piece series. Starting off, we have Gear 1. Luffy's base form isn't exactly a gear, but it is the first of his Devil Fruit techniques that he mastered. The fundamental form is far from feeble, with nearly 100 moves requiring Luffy to stretch his rubber limbs for offensive, including such legendary varieties as Gomu Gomu no Pistol and Gomu Gomu no Bazooka. Luffy has frequently relied on the dependable attacks of Gear 1, which come effortlessly to him. Next up, Gear 2. Luffy adopts Gear 2 as his go-to form after he learns how to wield his powers in episode 272. When he uses it against the wicked Blueno, it is clear that Gear 2 puts Luffy in a completely new category as a warrior, tenfold increasing his speed and strength. The disadvantage of Gear 2 is also obvious right away, as Luffy's complexion turns pinkish, indicating that his blood is flowing quicker and he is spending a lot of energy. This swiftly depletes him and causes him to devour massive amounts of food in order to regain his power. However, as Luffy continues to perfect the form, he becomes better at timing himself, and the penalties of Gear 2 become less harsh and more manageable. During a gap in the story known as the time skip, Luffy appears to learn how to fully utilize the benefits of Gear 2 without causing himself the same level of injury it formerly did. He can also hold his breath for longer periods of time. Though it comes in as one of his weakest forms, Gear 2 has gotten Luffy and the Straw Hat gang out of innumerable jams, and it can even be seen occasionally in conjunction with Gear 3, making it a tried and true classic. Then we have Gear 3, first introduced in episode 304 of the Enies Lobby storyline. To save Nico Robin from the hands of Cypher Pole and the world government, Luffy is compelled to employ something even more formidable than Gear 2. Fortunately, he's been thinking about gear development since the end of the Water 7 storyline. In episodes 272 and 273, his desire to experiment out new gears almost comes into play in the fight against Blueno, but Blueno falls, rendering the fighting point useless. In Gear 3, Luffy bites down hard on his thumb to inflate his body, much like a balloon, but much weirder. This allows Luffy to break reinforced structures with ease, boosting the power of Gear 2 and bringing new skills with it. While Gear 2 focuses on speed, Gear 3 focuses on physical strength. Luffy's bones literally grow larger in Gear 3. The disadvantage of the power is that he first shrinks to below his regular size after the enlarging wears off, putting Luffy in a form of recuperation state. But, like Gear 2, Luffy eventually learns to predict and control Gear 3's less desirable outcomes. Next up is a one-time form, the dismal Nightmare Luffy. He first appears in episode 370, when the powerful pirate Moria snatches Luffy's shadow. He discovers that he needs to absorb other shadows to grow powerful enough to fight Moria's attacks and beat Moria and his friend Oars. While most people can only hold 2 or 3 shadows at a time, Luffy can hold 100, giving him the strength of all those shadows while growing his size tremendously, making this a really powerful form. Nightmare Luffy is a lot of fun while being somewhat frightening, and it's a shame we won't see this form again anytime soon, owing to its situational nature. While his allies struggle and are almost defeated in this knockdown, drag-out battle against Moria's men, Nightmare Luffy manages to get them to safety. He then takes on Moria and Ors, knocking Moria out with Gomu Gomu no Pistol and knocking Ors out with Gomu Gomu no Storm. With the struggle over, the shadows eventually leave Luffy's body, implying that Nightmare Luffy is coming to an end. Nonetheless, this is certainly one of his more scary avatars among fans. Then we have one of the most jaw-dropping gears that made everybody think Luffy might be a genius. Yes, it's Gear 4. We start off with Gear 4 Bounce Man. Luffy enters in episode 725. Anger erupts, I will take everything upon myself. To combat the glamorous but deeply sinister pirate Don Quixote do Flamingo, who aims to encircle the island kingdom of Dressrosa with a gigantic birdcage. Naturally, the Straw Hat Pirates are outraged, and Luffy scores some big blows in their fight, but Doflamingo is immensely powerful, and eventually gets the upper hand on Luffy. Though Doflamingo has the upper hand for most of the fight, Luffy's righteous wrath at Doflamingo's cruelty and greed drives him to his Gear 4 transformation, much to Doflamingo's surprise. When Luffy notices the birdcage closing in on Dressrosa, he transforms into his most powerful form yet. This is Bounce Man, and his body expands to a little larger ball-shaped size due to the sudden rush of strength as represented by his sudden need to continue bouncing up and down. Doflamingo initially finds this new form amusing and taunts Luffy, only to be met with a rapid fire strike that stuns him and then defeats him with stunning ease. Even when Doflamingo tries to fight back, Luffy absorbs the force of his attack and redirects it in a succession of lightning-fast attacks. Whatever you think of Bounce Man's unusual skill set, I don't want to go up against him. Gear 4 Tank Man. Tank Man's first appearance is in episode 805. When the villain Cracker attacks with his cookie army, he is surprised that Nami can soften them with rain so that Luffy can swallow them all at once. As fans know, Luffy loves food almost as much as he loves being a pirate, so he dives right in. Gear 4 Tank Man significantly improves Luffy's defensive powers. By expanding his muscles, his body becomes an impenetrable fortress, allowing him to blast adversaries away with the recoil from their strikes. Luffy's toughness in this condition is astounding. He tanked and even deflected Cracker's armament haki enhanced sword, although the latter could wound Luffy in his Bounce Man form. First introduced in episode 870, the conflict between Luffy and Charlotte Katakuri, the eldest brother of the Charlotte family. Katakuri is a huge threat as one of the main antagonists of the Whole Cake Island narrative, and he nearly kills Luffy in episode 869. That is, until Luffy activates a new variant of Gear 4, the enormously powerful Snake Man. While employing his power, Luffy's hair spikes and he wears his steam like an attractive scarf. Snake Man allows Luffy to shift the direction of his attacks, which he also has in his Bounce Man form, and drive them into continual acceleration, increasing the speed and power of the move until it ultimately impacts the enemy. The Gear 4 Snake Man makes Luffy exceptionally swift and unpredictable by increasing his attacking speed while keeping his physique thin. It lacks the protective powers of the other two Gear 4 forms because it cannot make blunt assaults bounce off. Last but not least, the Mother Lode Gear 5. Luffy passed out after being struck by Kaido's Thunder Bellow Barrage. Soon after, his body began to change as he was instinctively able to unlock the real powers of his Devil Fruit, changing him into an incarnation of Nika, the legendary sun god. Luffy's previous gears were only temporary transformations. The Devil Fruit's real power was dormant. Thus, its abilities resemble those of the Paramecia class. Luffy revealed the true nature of his Devil Fruit as a mythical zone after gaining Awakening. Luffy's hair and garments turned white due to his new Gear 5 form. His eyes blazed red with white ring-like pupils, and white clouds floated above his neck, making him like the mythical sun god Nika. The transition greatly increased Luffy's physical talents, far beyond those of his previous gear incarnations. It also bestowed upon him incredible powers. He was transformed into a liberation warrior, capable of battling while spreading joy to all around him. Luffy's new skills practically allowed him to battle in the manner of his mind. He was able to extend his body's elastic nature to the environment around him, reshaping and conquering everything. Luffy can achieve incredible feats in his Gear 5 form, such as crunching the floor, catching thunderbolts with his bare hands, and constructing sunglasses out of his hair. Unsurprisingly, the Gear 5 was dubbed the most ridiculous power in the world. Luffy's body became cartoonishly flexible while also becoming more durable. He was able to freely expand his body and limbs, making them as large as a giant's without needing to use Gear 3's bone inflation or Gear 4's muscle inflation. Despite Kaido's immense size as a fully turned dragon, Luffy was able to capture and manhandle him. Luffy defeated Kaido by combining the amazing powers of Gear 5 with improved versions of observation, armament, and Conqueror's Haki. Luffy is still vulnerable to cutting attacks even with Gear 5. Furthermore, the form uses so much energy that he begins to age inexorably when Luffy breaks out of it. To halt the process and restart Gear 5, he must force his heart to beat in time with the drums of liberation. Luffy is currently a Yonko level fighter. He has an advantage over practically every other character in the series by combining his future sight powers, the great power of his armament and Conqueror's Haki, and the unbelievable abilities of the Gear 5. Well, that's it for today. Do you think anyone can stop Luffy with his Gear 5? Tell us in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe.